This is Terry Talks Movies. Don't worry. AI has not taken over yet. Welcome to Science Fiction Saturday.
Hi, welcome to the channel. Not sure what happened just a moment ago, but something went wrong with my computer. Yep, it's Science Fiction Saturday again, and I've got a couple of alien invasion movies for you. One from 1965, one from 1990. And if there's a common theme among these two, the common theme is basically weird alien invasions. I mean, it could be argued that by its very nature an alien invasion is weird, but these two take very particular angles about alien invasion. They're both B pictures. They're not enormously budgeted pictures, but they're entertaining, they're fun, they're amusing, they've got some good actors in them, and what more can you ask for? First one has more names than a scam artist. One of the names is Nightcaller from Outer Space, also known as the Nightcaller, also known as Blood Beast from Outer Space, and there is no Blood Beast anywhere in the movie. It's a 1965 British film. The second movie also has multiple names. In some markets it's called I Come in Peace, and in other markets it's called Dark Angel from 1990, a good fun science fiction adventure movie starring Dolph Lundgren. But we'll do the English one first. Nightcaller from Outer Space, I'm just going to call it Nightcaller for the sake of brevity. It was directed by John Gilling, who also did a lot of interesting movies for Hammer at the time, and it stars John Saxon, Maurice Denham and Patricia Haines. It was based on a 1961 novel by Frank Crisp called The Nightcallers, and unfortunately for this film, it was released in a colorized version in 2011, but I watched the black and white version because you've got to maintain standards, don't you? The setup for this one is pretty simple. In a research lab in England, and there were so many of them at the time, a scientist called Dr. Morley, played by Maurice Denham, his American associate Jack Costain, played by John Saxon. We can just start to see his hairline recede. Using a radio telescope, detect that a meteor is heading towards Earth, and it's got some very unusual characteristics. Apart from anything else, when they find it, it's about that big, about the size of a basketball. Along with their assistant Anne Barlow, played by Patricia Haines, who, by the way, was married to Michael Caine. And so with the aid of the army, they get this sphere back to their lab. It's got some unusual characteristics. When they find it, it's freezing cold rather than being very hot. And when they get it back to the lab, it starts displaying some very unusual characteristics. It glows, it gives people headaches, and eventually they find out that what it is a receiving station for a matter transmission device on the third moon of Jupiter, Ganymede. And they find out that the aliens from Ganymede are coming to Earth for a very particular purpose. Basically what they're doing is they're kidnapping pretty girls for their genetic material. They don't tell you in what way they mean genetic material, but that's the essence of it. One alien comes to Earth, sets up a fake modelling agency, and decides he's going to kidnap a whole bunch of beautiful young English chicks to take back to Ganymede for their genetic material. Or at least that's what he tells people. I mean, what he's actually doing, who knows? It's a mystery. He's an alien. In case you haven't figured it out by now, I'm going to do spoilers all the way through this movie. The movie starts and finishes with very odd tones. At the start, you've got a kind of romantic lounge music love song almost about the Nightcaller, but that's only in certain versions of the movie. The version I've got's got this song on it, and I kind of went, that sounds like they really wanted to get a record out and make a few more bucks off the side of this movie, which they may well have done, but seems like an odd thing to do. And the plot's very interesting too, because they start out in the science lab with Maurice Denham and John Saxon and Patricia Haines investigating this thing. They get an army officer in, played by John Carson, who also worked with the director John Gilling in a couple of different Hammer films. Apart from that, the cast and the supporting cast, which is really good, is full of character actors who do certain kinds of characters. You have Jack Watson playing an army sergeant, because Jack Watson in movies pretty much always played an army sergeant or something equivalent. Sometimes a police officer, but mostly an army sergeant. You get Alfred Burke, who mostly played policemen, and he does that again in this movie. And there's one cameo when they're interviewing the parents of one of the lost girls, and they have Warren Mitchell, a fantastic character who ended up working and living here in Australia at the end of his life and his career, playing a guy called Reg Liburn. And he does a really interesting double act with an actress called Marion Stone, where they're playing a couple, and they're kind of finishing each other's sentences and stepping on each other's statements, and they give you this tiny capsule of a really familiar kind of marriage relationship.
Jean went out about 7 o'clock that night. Said she'd be back about 11.
11.
Anyway, well, we went to bed early, didn't we?
Yes.
So she got her own front door key.
Yeah, she's got her own key.
And it's wonderful because it's in the middle of this movie, which is about a weird, mysterious alien who is kidnapping young girls and taking them to Jupiter's moons. And in the middle of that, you get this beautifully acted little cameo of these two actors playing off each other in a wonderful way. But that's not all. You get more good character stuff in here as well, because the way the alien is getting these young women who want to be models is he's put an ad in a magazine called Bikini Girl, which has a letterbox drop, and then he contacts the girls after he gets the letters from them and arranges to meet them, takes a 3D photograph of them, which is sent to the house, and in some ways hypnotizes them so that he can kidnap them. But the letterbox drop is a bookshop which sells sleazy magazines. And the bookshop's run by a guy called Thorburn, played by Aubrey Morris, who plays the character as a very fey and gay and flirty bookshop owner. And there's a moment there where Aubrey Morris shines, and he gives us a kind of unsavoury but amusing characterisation.
Yeah, she always did seem a creepy sort of bloke, though. But if you don't do business with peculiar people, you don't do business in this part of the world.
So what did he look like? You must have got a good look at him in here.
He always had a scarf all over his face. You couldn't see very much of it, but he was tall.
There's a lot of good character acting in this movie, apart from the leads. Patricia Haines is very good, playing the secretary to the two scientists. John Saxon is pretty serviceable as one of them. And Maurice Denham, who always played something like a scientist in movies, does a fairly good job of his professor until eventually the glowing orb kills him. But this is really weird because at the start you've got that stuff in the lab with the scientists finding out what this thing is and how it works and determining that it is a receiving station for a teleportation device. And then as these women start disappearing and the links are made between the mysterious object, the alien who escapes the research center in a Jaguar he steals. Yes, the alien actually steals a car and nicks off from the base. So they make an association between that and about 30 young women who are disappearing from all over the UK. So the movie then shifts into being something of a police procedural, as the cops played by Alfred Burke and Stanley Meadows start investigating and finding out the link between the magazine and the girls and setting a trap for the alien using Patricia Haines' character Anne Barlow as the bait. She insists that she be the bait because she knows about the alien. She's a good choice for this particular undercover assignment. And all through that part, John Saxon's character is kind of marginalised in the narrative. He does turn up occasionally, but for the most part, it shifts to the police procedural part of things. And the wonderful character acted by Aubrey Morrison, Warren Mitchell, and Marion Stone. So it makes for a very odd science fiction invasion film narrative. The other interesting thing about this is the direction by John Gilling, which is really good. He uses some interesting camera angles. He manages to keep the absurdity of the whole premise on track. He uses a mobile camera in some very interesting ways. He uses some interesting Dutch angles and things like that to good effect without overdoing that effect. And after a while, when I was watching the movie, I really got into it more for watching John Gilling's direction than some of the silly things that were happening on screen. And that made it a much more fulfilling viewing than it would be otherwise. I think this is an incredibly well-directed movie on a fairly small budget. Eventually, the police and the scientists find a way to track down the alien. There's a lot of radio interference that comes when the alien is using the teleportation device. So they get 3 radio telescopes in different parts of the UK to triangulate the location of where the alien is as it teleports these poor young women to Ganymede. And so the police and the army and John Saxon track down the alien, who is with this sphere which has grown to the size of a kiddie swimming pool. And the alien talks to them for the first time. One of the things the people have said about the alien when they encountered him is he has a lovely voice because he's using posh received pronunciation. If you're going to be an alien invasion in England, make sure you use a posh accent, because if you use a Barnsley accent, for instance, they're not going to take you seriously.
Hey up, Dash Carney. I don't want for your young'un.
So John Saxon talks to the alien, and the alien explains that they had a nuclear war on Ganymede and that they're trying to come back from a lot of genetic damage caused by the radiation. And so they're using the women and their genetic material for that. So John Saxon has this tete-a-tete with this alien, and the alien reassures him that no harm will come to the young women they've kidnapped and taken to the alien planet, and they'll be okay. Well, we'll leave aside the fact that their parents and their families have lost them forever because they're somewhere out near Jupiter. And everybody goes, yeah, okay. And the alien leaves Earth, the ball blows up, and we cut to the credits. That's a very odd ending. The cops and the army and the scientists have been searching for these young women and trying to get them back. And on the say-so of the alien, they go, yeah, okay, if they're going to be treated all right, you can have them. That's weird. That's dismissive of the characters that have been built up in the movie. And it's just an ending that left me going, WTF. It's a very, very strange ending. And it may well be because there was a limited budget and they couldn't really find a better ending in a hurry on a budget. And the unusual way to kind of marginalise the victims of this alien who's conned these young women into being kidnapped for his own purposes and taking them to another planet. It just boggles my mind that they made that the ending of this movie. It leaves me as close to speechless as I ever get. It's a very weird ending to this movie. And the movie's built up a lot of goodwill with me before that. It's got good character actors, it's got a fine direction, it's got some interesting dialogue, it's got great camera angles, it's got everything I want from a movie of this type. And then it flubs the ending. And I'm a little bit disappointed with that. And I may well go and have a beer just to commiserate with myself that I watched it. But The Night Caller, okay movie, shit ending. Too long did not read about it. The feel of it is great, but the ending is head desk bad. So that then takes me to 1990 for a more satisfying ending to a movie, with the movie called I Come in Peace, also known and stars the wonderful Dolph Lundgren, Brian Benben as a very tight-ass FBI agent, and Betsy Brantley as his girlfriend, who is also the coroner of the police force for whom Dolph Lundgren's character Jack Kane works for. Betsy Brantley, by the way, was at the time married to Steven Soderbergh. And again, this is a weird alien invasion movie, but it's in that sweet spot that I love of VHS era science fiction B pictures. It was directed by Craig R. Baxley, who was also a stunt coordinator on a number of movies and TV series. The stunt work is top drawer in this one. It's got lots of explodey bits, which is always good in kind of VHS era science fiction movies. Very few VHS era science fiction movies don't have massive explosions in them, but it's almost a hallmark of the genre that they have explodey bits in them. Wikipedia says, the film is about a rule-breaking vice cop who becomes involved in an investigation of mysterious drug-related murders on the streets of Houston, Texas.
I come in peace.
Jack Kane, a cop who does things his own way.
What are you doing? Shortcut.
Jack Kane, played by Dolph Lundgren, who's a more sophisticated kind of rogue cop than we normally get. He likes fine wine, he's got a very tasteful apartment, he's got a kind of tsundere relationship with the local coroner, and he's tracking down the White Boys, a gang of yuppie drug runners who are working in the area and who kill his partner in a convenience store robbery. So while all this is going down with Jack, one of those parking lot Christmas tree sales places, guy crashes his car into the parking lot where the Christmas trees are. And then his car gets hit by something that drops in from outer space and gets exploded. And what drops in from outer space is an enormous muscly alien called Talek, played by Matthias Hughes, a German bodybuilder actor who was a friend of Arnold Schwarzenegger's. And Talek is on Earth for a very particular purpose. And again, there's going to be spoilers here. What he's doing is he steals a whole bunch of drugs from the White Boys yuppie gang, and he, through an implant he had with a long snaky syringe on the end of it, injects the heroin he gets into people, makes for the heroin to metabolize, and then he stabs the people in the forehead with this other syringe he's got and extracts a drug called Barcy, which is created when you pump a whole bunch of heroin into a human being. You can extract Barcy from their brain, and he wants to take it back to his home planet. And once he gets back to his home planet, the Earth's going to be invaded by lots and lots of big, muscly, trench-coated, mulleted aliens who are going to use us basically as a manufacturing platform for this opioid drug that the aliens need. Again, another weird reason for an alien invasion. Talek is hunted by an alien cop called Azek, who tracks him down and has a really great gun which fires about 3 million bullets at once, causing more big explosions. But unfortunately, Talek shoots Azek, and Azek slowly dies, but not before he tells Jack and Jack's new partner, the FBI agent Larry, played by Brian Benben, who reminded me of a cross between Tom Cruise and a chipmunk. Fortunately, Larry and Jack get one of the alien guns, which fires 1 million bullets at once, from Azek as he dies. And unfortunately, when Azek dies, he does blow up, so there's no evidence that there's an alien invasion. What Jack and Larry don't know is that there's a government organisation that wants to make first contact with Talek and kind of do the kumbaya, making first contact thing, the whole Steven Spielberg Close Encounters of the Third Kind gear, not knowing this guy's basically a psychotic drug pusher, not knowing that this guy is a psychotic alien drug dealer, but they're going to throw Larry and Jack under the bus to make contact with this guy. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff in this movie. There's Dolph Lundgren playing it kind of low-key and playing against the stereotype of the rogue cop, the Mel Gibson Lethal Weapon kind of stereotype. Yes, he is a rogue cop and he doesn't like putting up with, and he hates putting up with departmental bullshit, but he's still a guy with sophisticated tastes. He reads, he's knowledgeable, he drinks fine wine rather than knocking down beers. You know, he's his own guy, and there's a little bit of character development there that you wouldn't get normally in this kind of movie. He has a great informant. We've got a little cameo in the movie by great cult movie actor Michael J. Pollard as Jack's informant, who tells him a little bit about what's going on with the White Boys gang. And it's kind of nice to see Michael J. Pollard in the movie again. You know, I enjoyed that bit. I think that's a nice nod to earlier days of movie making, and I appreciated that. There's also a really cool alien weapon, which is basically a self-guided perpetual motion DVD. It shoots out of a gun, it swings around, it cuts the throats of people and never stops spinning. And I really like that. There's a really cool weapon there, which is beyond human technology. We can understand that it cuts things, and it cuts things sharper than any surgical scalpel can. There's also a laboratory scientist who Jack knows, who's basically hyped up on pills and caffeine. He makes his own strong coffee in his lab, and he's the one who tells him what the magnetic weaponized DVD thing is. And again, you got that nice little bit of kind of quirky characterization happening there. It's nice that the movie is set in Houston, Texas, rather than Los Angeles or New York City. It's got that little bit of a different vibe about it, and the locations look a lot different. There are some car chases in there as well, which are made really interesting by the alien weaponry used. There's a really great synth score by a guy called Jan Hammer, who did a lot of the music for Miami Vice, and in fact he reuses some of the little music beats from Miami Vice in the movie. And the movie is like peak 1990. I mean, the titles have Lethal Weapon style fonts on them at the start of the film. All of the yuppies wear baggy suits. They're all a bit like Ellis in Die Hard. They've got that kind of vibe about them. Every second person has a mullet, which I really appreciated. And the bouffant hairdos on the female characters are interesting. There's a really interesting bit in the movie too, where Talek is getting one of his human victims. And the scene starts with a beautiful woman working on a muscle car. She's obviously really good at the mechanic part of muscle cars. And we see her doing some work with WD-40 and wrenches and things. And then this alien comes along and kills her. And I'm really pissed off by that, because I think I want to know more about this character. Obviously she's been developed as a lot more three-dimensional character than these movies normally have. And then this big bastard comes along and kills her. And that engaged me more with the movie, the fact that there was a little bit of character in one of the victims. It wasn't just cute chick gets done by an alien. It's cute woman who knows something really well and is doing that thing, which is not normally something that people associate with a female, gets done by an alien. And that works as well. The movie was really interesting because Matthias Hughes, who was an enormous guy, had to do all his own stunts because they couldn't find a stuntman big enough to do the stunts for him. There's a scene where he has to run across the roof of a whole bunch of cars while he's getting chased by Azek, the other alien, while explosions are going on behind him. And Matthias Hughes, who's not the most agile human being ever, because he's a muscle guy, runs across the roof of the cars perfectly one take. And I like the fact that he was able to do that. This is the kind of mad stuff I like in these kind of movies, because it was a big picture. I mean, the budget was like between 5 and 8 million. It got a cult following, even though the box office at the time it came out just barely made its money back. When it hit the rental market, it became a bit of a cult favourite. It's incredibly on point with the vibe of popular culture in 1990. It's got Dolph Lundgren in one of his better roles when he was doing the kind of action star kind of stuff. And because Dolph Lundgren himself is an intelligent guy, he was a chemical engineer before he took up with Grace Jones and finished his degree. He started his degree in Sydney and then finished his degree in Los Angeles because he became an actor and Grace Jones's boyfriend. And this movie shows a bit of that. He does the one-liners with a lot more charm than, say, people like Mel Gibson did or Sylvester Stallone, for instance. And it does a very good job of combining action with some kind of science fiction tropes without leaning deeply into being only a science fiction movie. And also some character beats, some interesting photography, some great action scenes. The car chase scenes are done really, really well. And giving us a somewhat different alien who knows basically only a few words of English, which are, "I come in peace." And he says that to people, and people start to relax, and then he kills them. The other cool thing about this movie, which is so peak 1980s, 1990s, is there's a cameo by Al Leong playing one of the guys who is involved in the drug dealing. Al Leong was one of the bad guys in Die Hard, the one that raids the candy bar downstairs in the Nakatomi building. He turns up in there and gets even some dialogue, which is kind of cool. And again, it cements that feel for 1989, 1990 Al Leong in an action movie kind of vibe. And I just like that. It's a movie that's satisfying. It's not a perfect film, but it's serviceable. It's a serviceable science fiction movie. It's a serviceable action film. And it's a lot of fun seeing Dolph Lundgren with his tongue in his cheek, just having a good time with a movie. So there you go. There are the two movies. You've got one, a 1965 WTF ending alien invasion film from England, which does the alien invasion, of course, on a very small scale because of budget. And then you get a movie from 1990, which hits the 1995 perfectly, and again shows an alien invasion movie of an odd kind on a very small scale because of a fairly small budget. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the notification bell. You can also become a channel member, or else you can become a supporter of the channel by donating at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Got the Sunday Monday video coming up next, and I've got some ideas for that. And then we go to the midweek video, and then back to Science Fiction Saturday once more, 3 videos a week. So until all of that stuff happens, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some really weird alien invasion movies. And by the way, what are your favourite weird alien invasion movies? And I'll catch you next time.